The Simpsons. What more can I honestly say about this show that hasn't already been said already? I've said before, time and time again, it's my favorite TV show of all time. I consider it to be the greatest television show of all time. And it's a show that it and I are very much intertwined in life because it started in 1989, the series did. I was born in 1989. I'm 35 years old. The show is entering its 36th season. I mean, we're connected in that type of way. It's one of the most influential shows of my lifetime. I grew to love cartoons because of this show, and I quote the show all the time to people, like most people do. I just really love this show, and so, I talk about the show all the time. I do it on the website, I do it here on YouTube, and I show clips from the newer episodes, which are surprisingly the most popular videos on here. So, that gave me an idea. Do something like what Doug Walker does with Disneycember, or James Rolfe does with Monster Madness, and do it with The Simpsons. So, starting this year, we're going to be doing Simptember, which will be daily episode reviews from the first 30 episodes of The Simpsons, starting with the first episode. And in addition, there's going to be short reviews of the Tracey Ullman shorts that started it all back in 1987. So, sit back and relax. This is Simptember. Let's start by going back in time to December 17th, 1989, where we have Simpsons roasting on an open fire, a.k.a. the Simpsons Christmas Special. This was written by Mimi Pond, which, a very interesting situation with her, because even though she wrote the very first episode of The Simpsons, she didn't become a regular member of the writing team because she alleged it was because the showrunner at the time did not want a woman on the team, and essentially she went on to become she was mostly known for being a cartoonist and illustrator, and got her first big break with Spectre magazine, and worked on other stuff during the 1980s, such as stuff with the National Lampoon, The Village Voice, the New York Times, Adweek, many others. She has written for television, though. She's written episodes of Designing Women and Pee-wee's Playhouse, as well as being a cartoonist for the Los Angeles Times and the other publications, and wrote a long-running full-page comic for 17 magazine in the 80s and 90s. This is directed by David Silverman, who's been a guy that has been very much with the show from the very beginning. He animated all of the original Simpsons shorts for the Tracey Ullman show. He's gone on to do other things as well, other side projects such as co-directing Monsters Incorporated, working on stuff for DreamWorks like The Road to El Dorado, worked on stuff like Ice Age, Robots, Looney Tunes Back in Action, a lot of stuff is that you are very much familiar with. But he was the main director on Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, which was intended to be the very first episode of this, which wasn't always intended to be the very first episode of the show. It was supposed to be Some Enchanted Evening, which ended up being the season finale because of the many problems going on behind the scenes. Ones that we'll get to when we get to that particular episode. But in this episode, you have the story of, while Christmas shopping, Bart sneaks off to go get a tattoo. And Marge soon discovers this and uses the family's Christmas savings to get it removed, thinking that Homer's going to get a big Christmas bonus from the power plant. However, Homer does not get that bonus, and because of that, the family has no money to buy Christmas presents, and Homer feels like he has to do whatever it takes to make sure his family have a Christmas, even going to cheap places like the dollar store. And he decides to keep those financial troubles a secret and gets a job as a department store Santa, but later discovers the job doesn't pay enough as all he earns is $13. Desperate for a miracle, Homer and Bart go down to the dog racing track, on Christmas Eve in hopes of earning some money. He bets it all on a long shot named Santa's Little Helper, who loses. Santa's Little Helper's owner furiously disowns the dog for completing last, and Homer lets Bart keep him. Later on, Homer attempts to come clean to everybody, but Bart exclaims that they have a dog, and everyone happily welcomes the newest member of the Simpsons family. And it's a debut episode for the Simpsons TV show following the success of the Tracey Ullman shorts. It does start off on a pretty good note. It's not only a good debut episode for the series, but it's also a really good, underappreciated holiday special. And, the animation, I think, really is the one real sticking point of the show. But then again, the first season is really choppy overall. It's their first time doing an animated show of this caliber. And, of course, as the series goes on, the animation is going to get better and better. So, yeah, the animation is going to be the one thing that really sticks out in most of the episodes in the first season. So it's the first episode of the show, too, so give it a pass on that front as well. It's got a good story. The good lesson that it has about, you may not be able to get everything you want, but it's the little things in life, such as saving a dog from getting lost in the cold, that can make you feel even happy, even when the worst of situations happens. A lot of great jokes are in this episode. The comedy bits are played out so well, such as the Santa school, that whole sequence where Homer's a department store Santa, and you think he's going to get his big payday just before the holidays come, and it ends up being a check for $13, which is absolutely hilarious. The whole idea that Bart has this whole idea that, Christmas miracles happen because it happens to everybody on television. It happens to Tiny Tim. It happens to Charlie Brown. It happens to the Smurfs. And it's going to happen to us. Like, that whole setup is really good. And even when they get to the dog racing track, Homer's the one that uses that kind of reverse psychology on Bart, because even Bart would know that Santa's Little Helper being, 9,900 to 1, chances are you're not going to be able to win on that front there. And sure enough, there's the cold hard lesson of life in that. And I like the scene where my favorite is the scene where Homer is going down to the Christmas tree lots, and he basically just decides, screw it, I'm going to go cut this tree down in the middle of a forest, and he's being chased down by these dogs, and it just leads to a really good punchline with the tree itself, where Patty, I think it's Patty. It's either Patty or Selma. Obviously, it's one of those two. They look at the tree and goes like, "Why is there a bird cage? Why is there a birdhouse in it?" And Homer's just like, that's an ornament." And then one of them goes, "Do I smell gunpowder?" Like, the humor is definitely there from the get-go. And yeah, overall, this is a great way to launch the series. Get the people excited to see what this show is going to be like. And I don't think anybody was really prepared for what the show was preparing us for going forward. And yeah, while the animation isn't as perfect as it would later become, it works in the story department. It works in the comedy department. The characters are just as great as we know them now. And if you can, definitely rewatch it again this holiday season, and you'd be surprised at how well it really does hold up. For the most part, except for the animation. But again, it's the first season, first episode overall. Let it slide, and we'll continue on with the next episode.